Okay, the game we're going to be looking at today is Almost a Miracle, the Revolutionary War in the North. But the predecessor of that game was actually this one, Tarleton's Quarter, designed by Mike Jocelyn in 2010. And it's an area, they're both area movement games based on the American Revolution. Tarleton's Quarter being the revolution in the South, and the one we're going to be looking at, Almost a Miracle, the Revolutionary War in the North. And I like both games. Now, when I looked this one up on Board Game Geek, I was quite surprised that nobody had done a video on it. So I thought it was about time this very good game gets a video. Now, both those games appeared in Against the Odds magazine, and I liked them enough that I decided to, well, why not make a Revolutionary War quad box? So I put them in a box with Campaigns of 1777, another very good game, which I haven't done a video on, and this old one by GTW called Guilford Courthouse. So these fitted nicely into the box, and I thought they made a nice little quad game. Let's take a look at Almost a Miracle, and this will be just an introductory video because it's quite a complicated, extensive game, a good simulation of the revolution in the North. Now the game comes in two maps, so it's quite long and skinny, and it actually fills most of my IKEA table here. So I'll just pan up a little bit to show you the kind of area it covers. As you can see in the far, far left, it goes up to Quebec City, down to Montreal, Richelieu River, that's Fort Ticonderoga, down into the Hudson River, and down here to New York City. That's Boston in the distance, and that's Fort Niagara there. And it goes down into Maryland and the northern part of Virginia. There's talk of combining the two games into one, Tarleton's Quarter and Almost a Miracle, but that has yet to be done. I don't really see the point of doing it, though. They're really two separate games entirely. The scales had to be adjusted slightly for this game because the armies in the north were much larger than in the south. But let's take a closer look at the map. Now, because the map is so large, when you're playing the game, you'll have to have, I suppose, the Patriot player playing here in the west and the British player sitting there on the eastern side. Here we've got the fortress city of Quebec. This is the St. Lawrence. And off in the distance there, you can see the British naval base at Halifax over there. And into New England, St. Lawrence here, Montreal, Richelieu River. Like I said, it's an area movement map. Each of the areas has a unique number to identify it, and each of the small numbers in it is the forage value. The larger that number, the more troops you're going to be able to feed in that area. Now the game begins in June of 1775 at the Siege of Boston. So off in the distance here you've got Washington's forces and the army under Gage besieged. And you go down to New York and you've got General Wooster there with some forces. And here at Ticonderoga you've got Montgomery and Arnold and some supply trains. Okay, we're taking a look here at some British troops. These can be used as change. They're generic strength points. Here's a 40 strength unit, 10 twos, and there's a supply train. Flip side is a magazine. So the British are white with the designation B in the bottom right. The Continental troops are in light blue with a C in the bottom to designate. Same thing. 10, 40, 100. Yes, there are large armies in here. That's a 100 strength point unit. Quite possible. And the trains and the magazine. And you can capture supply trains. So there's the symbol or the counter you'd use for a captured one. There are a lot of leaders in the game, and For those of you who read about the Revolution, you'll probably recognize a lot of them. Some I don't recognize. I guess they're pretty obscure commanders. Certainly I recognize von Steuben, Greene, Heath, Lafayette, Knyphausen, Haldimand, who was a governor, Count d'Estaing of the fleet, Stark, St. Leger, and Johnson, and Governor Tryon. And of course you get Riedesel. You get all kinds of leaders in this game, so you won't be wanting for them, that's for sure. And there's some French troops in dark blue. Well, let's get the focus here. Okay, that should be focused a bit better. The French troops. The designer has done something rather clever to handle the militia. Many games try to have militia for each colony, and that can get unwieldy at times. So what he's done is he's combined some. For example, these are New England militia, which is kind of handy. And he's combined New Jersey or New York militia. Here's Delaware and Maryland. This is Pennsylvania militia. Important enough, Pennsylvania contributed a lot of troops, so they deserve their own counter. And that's the, some militia was raised in Canada too, so they're included. Even though it's the war in the north, there were dragoons, not very many of them, but he's got those included also. Okay, there's a whole host of informational counters, forts, sieges, again, siege 1, siege 2, your year counters, reign counters, POWs, you've got prisoner of war exchanges in the game, and you get quite a lot of counters, and it's a well done game. I like the counters. Like most area games, when enemy forces and friendly forces are in the same area, there's a chance of combat because there is retreat before combat, and retreat before combat and engagement, a lot depends on the leader, their initiative, how good they are, supplies taken into account, and there's a very detailed combat system, which I won't get into here, but for an area movement game, is done very well. I would not worry much about the combat. It seems to simulate the Revolution pretty well. Now, as I mentioned, the game does begin with the Siege of Boston, and Gage is not in a very enviable position because Washington is here with what is it? It's 168 strength points of regulars, and Gage has only about 72, so it's not a very enviable position. And there's already a Siege 2 marker on Gage's forces. Now, fortunately, they've got sea movement, so Gage can move out by sea, which is probably what he'll want to do on turn 1. Now, one fellow commented and made a variant, and I think I agree with him. These 168 Continentals, really at this point in June of 1775, are not really Continentals. They may be named Continentals, but we know the army was certainly not ready. It was really just the accumulated militia from Connecticut and Massachusetts and Delaware, so it's not really a Continental army, and he suggested that maybe on turn 1 they should be considered militia. Fair enough. Anyway, I don't know how that affects the game. I haven't played it enough, but I think a good move would be for the British to get out of Boston as they did historically. Although they did not move out there in June of 1775. They actually stayed there all summer and left in March of the next year. And it was by mutual consent that they withdrew. Howe and Washington kind of came to an agreement to the effect that, well, you let us retire and then we won't set fire to the town. So anyway, that's what happened. But in the game, that won't necessarily happen. The game is wide open in that sense. Now, I'm still learning the game, so I can't say a lot about the playability and how it plays out. It certainly seems sound. I've moved a few counters, fought a few battles, and it seems logical to me. Now, when I was working on my own game, War for America, years ago, I actually started with a system just like this one, area movement. But later on, I went to point movement. So I find the games just looking at the Revolution from a different point of view. I do like the area movement system. Like I said, I almost incorporated it myself, but eventually went with point to point. But the other point to point game of the American Revolution was SPIs, which is this game, designed by Jim Dunnigan back in 1972, and it was way ahead of its time for 72. It was one of my favorite games on the Revolution, and still is. It's a terrific game. And this is like, I don't know, a more souped up version of this game. So that's all I'll say about Almost a Miracle. I'm sure you probably wanted to see a bit more. I just don't know enough about the game to really comment on it. But I can say that it's a winner. I think it's quite good. And if you get your hands on Tarleton's Quarter, that would be a good look at the Southern campaign. But that one's been out of print for a while now, and I think it's going for collector prices. But if Almost a Miracle is still around, you might want to consider it. Against the Odds magazine, by the way, too, has great articles with their games. They do a very good job. And look at the maps in there. I mean, you get a lot of bang for your buck with this magazine and game. So anyway, that's it for Almost a Miracle, and thank you for watching.